going on? Welcome, 25th episode. We are back. I'm looking right now. I haven't uploaded in over a month. So much has happened. I'm not gonna share it though. But just know so much has happened, yo. Blessed to be here. Blessed to be back talking sports. No, I'm rocking a GOAT jersey. Ian Will at Big 33. Had a pair of touchdowns the other night for the Chicago Bears. If you're a Bear fan, you know you love you some Ian Wheeler. Shout out to Eric Bieniemy. You know, he's got this gruff coaching style about himself. And he was really a hell of a player. But I think that for whatever reason, he kind of ruffled the wrong feathers. And a lot of people forget he couldn't find a promotion after reaching the summit. Everyone talks about reaching that summit, winning the Super Bowl, winning whatever is your kind of ultimate trophy in the sport that you play. And normally that correlates to a promotion of some kind. But Bieniemy for years couldn't get that, and he's back kind of doing his thing as an RB coach. His natural fit in a lot of staffs, especially in the eyes of the NFL, it clearly seems, right? But shout out to Bieniemy, shout out to the GOAT Ian Wheeler. This is the 25th episode. And I mean, we just back. We back. So let's get right into it. WNBA. The championship seems wide open right now, right? It seems like there's tons of teams that could win. I did mention on a different episode that I had a chance to go to a Liberty game. It was Liberty versus Mercury, and just going off that game where uh, the Mercury won that game. I think AT had a triple double. That's the same game where John Jones was injured, and Khalil Copper did not play that game. Um, so I say all that to say I feel really good about the Mercury in short doses. The WNBA plays best of three and best of five series, and so I feel good about her. I feel good about the Mercury and being led by AT, and I think that they have a good team synergy. They got DeWanna Bonner from the Fever. And I really think that they match up well with a lot of the league's best. Speaking of the league's worst, you have Angel Reese returning for the Chicago Sky. She was injured for a long while. Her coach, Tyler Marsh, was just ejected in dramatic fashion. He hit one of them like Popeye the Sailor Man kind of moves. I don't know what move he hit. That was a crazy move. I do, appreciate when coaches go to bat for their players, but yeah, he might have been wilding. He might have been out of pocket just a little bit. Yeah, Angel Reese returned in a big way. I mean, she just had a lot of good games. I think you really I hate comparing players, but like she reminds me of like a DeMarcus Cousins as far as her ability to see the floor as a bigger player, as a post player, and make the passes. Cardoso plays her best games with Angel Reese. That's not a surprise. People will keep trying to break up them two, but they clearly play their best games together. I think that Courtney Vandersloot, unfortunately, tore ACL. She might have been a good bridge guard for them, but like, in the absence of Kennedy Carter, like they don't have a lot of scoring. They just don't have like that guard that really gets the lights on. And I think that that's probably who they're going to be in the market for in the draft coming up, you know. Las Vegas Aces have really turned it on. Between Becky Hammond and Asia Wilson's leadership, you have to imagine that locker room was really hellish while they were really going through it. And they just decided, who wants to play. And Kirsten Bell decided she wanted to play, a player who's locked onto the roster, right? They couldn't get rid of her if they wanted to. And she took a lot of flack from fans online. And she stepped up in a big way in the last couple of weeks. Jackie Young is looking like every bit of Jackie Young. Chelsea Gray is looking a little better. I mean, the Aces to me could really win this year, and I think that Asia Wilson is probably not going to win MVP. I think that it's probably Nafisa Collier's award at this point in the eyes of the voters. And if not Collier, I would be happy if AT got it, to be fully honest. 'Cause I know that she deserves it. But Asia Wilson, if she wins the chip, considering how this team started this year, it'll be one of the most impressive feats ever done. And that's considering the fact that she's on the heels of a historic 2024 season. So shout out to Asia Wilson. Um, the Lynx obviously look good. They have the stud buds out there, have Collier. I mean, McBride is one of my favorite players in the league. They have a very deep team. And, Cheryl don't play over there. Liberty, like I already mentioned. And then Seattle. Seattle could totally win. I think Atlanta could contest as well. But I think Seattle, especially with getting Brittany Sykes in a trade as of late, I think that they have a chance to contend. I've already mentioned MVP. Defensive Player of the Year it would be an interesting vote as well. Because to be honest, I would vote for Andrew Reese. I think that she's one of the only players who can defend 1 to 5, and she super stepped up her game this year as compared to last. Like maybe all the numbers won't show it, right? Her turnovers are something that she has to cut out of her game. Her percentage, she could lift to have a better percentage, whatever, right? But I think that as far as a player who's harder to score on 1 to 5, who a player who other players are trying to hunt a different kind of player, and not her. Like when she shows up on the switches, most people are like giving the ball up, and she defends the rim super well, and she probably leads the league in rebounds. So I think that she would be a great pick for Defensive Player of the Year. Will she get it? I don't know. Is she eligible? I don't know. But we will see. Another award that is causing some buzz, that did cause some buzz, especially online, is Paige Beckers and Sonia Centrone for Rookie of the Year. Now, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk briefly about Candace Parker and her podcast with Aaliyah Boston. I don't understand why she thinks that's a good idea to have a podcast with a player who's active. You can have a podcast with Maya Moore or like Simone Augustus. Like you can have a podcast with a player who you played with in your heyday, and you want to get your stuff off. Like it's very obvious that Candace Parker is a very opinionated human being, and she wants to get her bars off. That's okay. So maybe even make it a solo joint, but don't throw Leah Boston in there, right? And now she has to like take, the brunt of like every time she plays against somebody like Angel Reese now, she's gonna just take all her veracity because of all the smoke that you have for Angel Reese in the relationship that you guys do or don't seem to have with each other. And she is like, oh, like she's really defensive. Like she's like when people ask her about it and she talked about it on her podcast, she's like, oh, I said she's this because this will do, da da da. There's healthy ways to talk about with these players without sounding so damning or so uh, hyperbolic, and I think that as somebody who's done it for over 25 episodes in this show and who's done it, I did it for over 10 episodes with the show I had with Makai. I did it for on and off, or like not every episode of the Polar podcast, which is like 65 episodes. Not every episode covers sports, but I did have one episode with my good friend Justin, and it was just straight sports. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like the ability to talk about these players as human beings. It's sometimes lost on people who like to make it their job to talk about these players. It's very interesting. Um, but they on their podcast is one of their subjects. We're talking about Rookie of the Year and try to make it sound like it's close. I think that what Paige is being asked to do and what Sonya is being asked to do are not the same. You can appreciate how well Sonya Centrone is playing without talking about her in juxtaposition to Paige Beckers. Because in reality, right now, like especially with the trade of Brittany Sykes, like she is trying to learn how to be that number two reliable scoring option while also not being a cone on defense. That's really what Citrone is learning how to do, right? Aaliyah Edwards is probably still the one on that team. Kiki Arifin is down low getting bucks, but she's not in the rookie of the year race, right? She almost really lost that all-star bid the way she played for that 2 week stretch. She played pretty poorly. So Sonya is very, very talented. She's very good at putting the ball in the cup. I think that she's a three-level scorer as well, in a league full of talented three-level scorers, but like it's rare to have three-level scorers as good as somebody like Citrone or somebody like Beckers. But look at the coverages that Paige Beckers is getting. Look at it. I mean, she's getting double and triple teamed. People posted after her 44-point game, which in all but sealed the deal for her for being Rookie of the Year and really launched her into all WNBA contention, in my opinion. And at least should, at the very minimum, for the voters. If you can't look at that performance and say she's an all WNBA player, you're an idiot. Out of all 40-point games ever recorded, that is one of the most efficient, maybe the most efficient, beautifully done. Her balance, this is a player who suffered a major lower body injury, right? The balance that she plays with, she's able to elevate the game of her teammates while also like getting double teamed, like I mentioned it already, but also like not getting great positioning from her head coach. He's worked on it recently in putting her in good positions, kind of like off flare screens to get one-on-ones on the nail and in the post. Like he's worked on it, but before that, I mean, he was clearly trying to get her to jack up threes. In her 44-point game, she only shot 4 threes, and all of them were water. Like you have to trust a scorer like her, who's a rhythm scorer, a volume scorer, who's going to find ways to put the ball in the cup when it makes sense to. Like if she had her way, she'd probably shoot the midi every time, and she takes it when it's there. She doesn't go out of her way to do nothing extra extravagant for no reason. She's truly a bucket, and so I think that her playing next to somebody like Enrique, like hopefully that can show Enrique, like, this is what it looks like to put a little bit more emphasis into every time you touch the pill, because inefficient scorers, in my opinion, just treat every shot like you're going to get another shot. That's all it is. And so Becker treats every shot like she's not going to get another shot, and that's one of the reasons that she's the far and away rookie of the year. And you know the Wings will definitely be better next year. I wonder how, though. Every player that they've traded away is going to the playoffs. It says a lot about the organization that they currently are running, right? Why is every single player good enough to play on the playoffs on a different team, but not good enough to play on the playoffs on your team cohesively together? Coaching, right? Um, let's have a real conversation about the Indiana Fever, right? This is a team that dominates a state that is always crazy for something, right? Like they're looking to be crazy for something. They love sports. Like they love all sports. They will get behind somebody who looks like them, who represents them, who represents their team. Like it's a strong fan base. And so that being considered, it should be, and this should go without saying, right? It should be the emphasis on the players to harness the positivity within the strong fan base while also denouncing the negativity. Many of the players, it seems, aren't only interested in speaking about negativity from crowds when it's a crowd that's not their own, when it's in a situation that's not convenient for them, right? Whereas their own crowd is clearly berating players, treating players a certain way online and offline in ways that are damaging and harmful to growing in the league. And if you want the whole league to grow, you have to act like you want the whole league to grow. I think that it's unfortunate because the players are being made out to be all like super jealous and super self-serving or whatever. And like maybe they are to the same extent that anybody is in these capitalistic industries. But at the same time, it's more so about the fact that the Indiana Fever are being used as like this unicorn team in a league full of unicorn teams. The league has never been more talented. The 156 players and 12 coaches, 13 coaches have never been more talented and more deep in the WNBA. And that has to be celebrated. And and the Fever players, like particularly like Sophie Cunningham, less so Lexi Hall, right? But like she's complacent with the whole Tres Leches thing, and Caitlin Clark is being the main culprit. They need to be serious about the growth of the entire league while also understanding that that doesn't threaten their individual growth as possibly the most popular team in the league. But it seems like a lot of the popularity is being forced and manufactured. And people will say, well, what do you mean by that? They got like 80% of the games televised, right? That's clearly backfiring now that Caitlin Clark is missing most of those games. And these are people who have put their life savings aside and like say like made family trips out of going to see them. They could very easily be also seeing the Atlanta Dream or the Seattle Storm, but they won't be able to because they're not getting these televised games and they're not being advertised the same way. And these players who are so good are not being promoted. It threatens the Indiana Fever fan base to promote a player like Paige Beckers because they see similarities to Caitlin Clark. But I've never heard any of them having an issue with like Sonia Citron, right? They don't really feel threatened by her for whatever reason. But with Beckers, I think it also has to do with her politics, right? Both openly and non. Like Citron went to Notre Dame, which is something that I'm sure more of them can get behind, right? Think about the location, think about the politics, think about the fact that she's always been on the straight and narrow. Olivia Miles, who I believe is queer, was not able to really express that at Notre Dame. And there was an issue with Hidalgo. Hidalgo had to do a sit down interview with ESPN and be like, I don't hate these people, right? Everybody left the team. I think that like there's always more there. Like you're not gonna tell me it's about money. Everybody left the team. Nobody wants to play with this person. And so connecting that back to the Fever, right? It's like hate begets hate, and you have this obligation to kind of stomp this out and nip it in the bud. Again, using Cunningham as an example, she's actively complaining about Paige Beckers and the whistle that she gets and all this, while also trying to brand herself as an enforcer. So which one is it? Like, are you are you Bill Lambier? Like, are you out here elbowing people and you're proud of it, or are you like, are you gonna throw the rock and hide your hand? Because that's what it seems like she enjoys doing and does a lot. The Fever are a different team without Beckers and without Clark and with Clark. I think that if she was there, and let's say like the last like starting from like maybe a week ago, they could make a clear playoff push. But it's a very unfortunate that nobody wants to acknowledge Kelsey Mitchell, right? Somebody who's on the team again, like it threatens what they want to believe is this is the case with their team. You can compliment how well Kelsey Mitchell is playing without saying anything, without even thinking about Kayla Clark, But AZ Fuzz's father tweeted about that, and the entire Indiana Fever fan base was like, on Twitter was like, "Yo, what's wrong with you? Like, how dare you disrespect Kayla Clark?" He wasn't talking about her. He was talking about Kelsey Mitchell. She was putting the ball in the cup. Like she was seriously getting some pro level buckets. Some one of one buckets. Shout out to her. And she was tasked with a much bigger scoring responsibility in the absence of Clark, and she stepped up in every which way. Also had underrated scoring last year as well, but she stepped up in every which way. Let's shift real quick. We're gonna end talking about some football. The New York Giants are buzzing. It's just preseason, but the New York Giants went 3-0. They put up over 30 points in every single game. Saw good things from all units on all sides of the ball, from draft picks this year, from draft picks past. Some guys on the bubble, like I don't know if you keep Jalen Hyatt, right? Like I think his performance was really enticing, but he did have some drops. His speed you can't teach though. I think that's the reason that they're gonna keep him because you need to be able to stretch the defense, and that's gonna happen with speed. You can have as many big, strong dudes as you want. Like Bellinger's not gonna play a ton because he's not as fast. If Bellinger was like an Evan Ingram, I know Dayball was salivating. Like, yeah, Evan Ingram would low key fit perfect in this offense because he was stretched the field. Um, I think Gabe Davis would be reliable. He has good hands. The Giants may sign him, but he's not somebody that's going to stretch the field with his speed anymore. At this point in his career, he's probably 29. Um, but the Giants are looking good. I think during the season, you really want to rest your head on the run game. Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scatterbo, and probably Turbo Miller, with Singletary being the odd man out. You really hang your head on the game. If Jackson Dart is in the game, you have some design runs. If Russell Wilson's in the game, you have some zone reads. You want to throw some deep balls with either one of those two guys in the game. Maybe not Jameis Winston just due to the interception possibility. But, the Giants are looking really, really excited. I think that Jackson Dart does have to learn how to slide. But what's going to be crucial is the defense. Every year the Giants made it to the Super Bowl, the defense was just lights out, from defensive line to the back guys making plays, like underrated plays, like a guy like Corey Webster who had a couple of seasons where he truly was not playing good football. During the seasons where the Giants were competitive, he was playing some of his best football at some of the times where it mattered the most on the back end. Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips. You got a lot of talent back there. Cordero Flott has been looking good. Got a lot of talent back there. I think the Giants probably are like a linebacker, a safety, a receiver away from being like truly as deep as they want to be. But I think there's no reason the Giants shouldn't win 10 games this year. Is that going to make the playoffs in 2025? Maybe not. But I think 10 games is really, really manageable, really doable for the New York Giants in 2025. I'm trying not to get too excited because like you want to ask yourself, when is Jackson Dart going to play? He looked too good. He took 4 touchdowns, 500 yards of offense, no giant mistakes. Um, it's not like he was perfect, but he certainly looked like he was ahead of where many of us, including myself, thought he would be at this point in time. So you really have to ask, when is he going to play? But Russell Wilson looked good too. He had a pick, I think, that looked kind of bad. He had a couple rough drives, but had a moon ball. He's a guy that people want to play with, people want to play for, and he brings something to the Giants. He brings some flair. He's Mr. Unlimited after all, but he brings some flair to the New York Giants. I like it. The Shador Sanders era in Cleveland, I think, is going to come to an end. Shiloh Sanders was actually just cut from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I don't see them keeping Shador. I don't think that they want to go through at least the whole year with another media storm. They already have enough going on with Deshaun Watson. Now, I'm not saying that this is Shador's fault. I'm saying that this is something that they kind of have created, right? They could have drafted him in the third round. They didn't. Many teams could have drafted him in the first round. They didn't. I think that as far as football, like just football, and I've stayed away from this topic on this show because I think many things. I think that this is an intersectional issue. I think that there's certainly things Sanders could be doing better, but I think that there's certainly things he shouldn't be being penalized for, right? When I watched the BYU bowl game, that was one of the last football games I remember watching just in entirety from beginning to end because I was really curious about how Colorado was going to end the season. They, to me, outperformed a lot of expectations last season. It wasn't realistic to think they were going to make the college football playoff, but they were in a serious bowl game against BYU and they got smacked. Shador was holding on to the ball super long. That was the first game I was like, all right, he might not be a first rounder, right? That being said, second or third round I thought was like kind of manageable. Maybe fourth, right? Fifth, but he's there, give him the opportunities. They took him out before the 2 minute drill to give a guy, Snoop Hundley, an opportunity and they cut him, right? They're kind of putting Dylan Gabriel in more favorable positions. And then they're clipping Yahoo Sports is really the main culprit, and Bleacher Report, but they're clipping out certain things that he's saying to make him sound one way, to make Gabriel sound one way, to make Stefanski sound one way, to make Barry sound one way. And it is an exhausting situation. Whatever, if you're a true fan of this cat, you want to stay away from saying stuff because it's not helping the fact that the storm exists. But at the same time, you're seeing some slanderous takes, and you're like, I want to get in front of this. It's a no-win situation for Sanders. It's a no-win situation for fans of Sanders. It's hard to watch. It's hard to be a part of. We really, really, really wish him well, but I don't see him staying with the Cleveland Browns. I don't see the Cleveland Browns wanting to keep him. The Raiders needed backup quarterback. O'Connell just got hurt. I can see that, right? Seeing him with Tom Brady, but then he has to deal with the fact that Tom Brady has a guy over there. I can't remember his name, but a guy that he vouched for, that he picked up, that he wanted, versus Sanders, a guy that he's had an open relationship with since like 2017, 18, 19, when Sanders was going to go to Florida Atlantic, and Brady did not take him, right? And then Geno Smith ain't going nowhere. Him and Pete Carroll are thick as thieves. So you're not playing, right? So in any case, you're not playing. And then I think it just boils down to who it is you're not playing behind. Because as of right now, it doesn't seem like him not playing behind Flacco is fine, but him not playing behind Flacco and Gabriel doesn't seem likely. Pickett is not even in the story right now. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at with Shador. You know, I'm rooting for the brother. I always am. I hope that he gets in a situation that's most favorable to him. But that's it, baby. Episode 25. Y'all let me know what we want to cover. Let me know how we feeling in the comments down below. Doses.